Hi guys, this is Cosmic. I just wanted to bring a guide on the LOD Necromancer for Season 35. This is something that's taken me a while to test, so I haven't been able to make a guide confidently about this until now. I had to get some gear with a lot more cooldown than I had before to be able to properly test this. So we got a decent clear, still working on a better one. Um, so I want to go over this build. There's going to be two variants here. One is going to be the one that's optimal. It's going to require lots of cooldown. So we want cooldown wherever we can, on the weapon, on the offhand, on the gloves, on the shoulder if possible. We get the Leos, that kind of thing. Cooldown from the actual Zodiac ring. So we want cooldown wherever possible, even from the Enchantress with this variant. The other variant's going to be less cooldown hungry. So to review the gear, we've got Leos for the extra cooldown. We've got Resist. This is going to give us damage reduction when our resource is not full. This is like a backup Aquila. So you either have this or you have that. Stone Gauntlets, pretty much required. I recommend getting cooldown on this either way, because if you can, you want to kind of lean into the other variant, this variant at some point. But if you end up with area on this and you don't have cooldown here and you don't have cooldown here, you might want to run with the other variant that I'm going to show you. So this would ideally be crit area cooldown. We want crit area here. This is going to be self-explanatory, attack speed, crit chance cooldown. That's pretty much what we do with every Zodiac. Dainties is pretty much a staple of this build, but if you're higher Paragon, you might be able to run a Vigilante Belt for more cooldown, or Witching Hour for more damage, or Harrington Waistguard for more damage if you want to fish for corpses. So those are the belt options there. Strong Arm Bracers is going to be huge for both of these variants. They both have knockbacks. Those knockbacks are going to increase your own damage, and they're also going to increase the damage of the season theme. So, for example, if you proc Army of the Dead, it's a knockback. If you proc Strong Arms with that, right as the corpses are raining down, the enemies are going to take 30% more damage from those corpses for 6 seconds. So something to keep in mind on the timing of these knockbacks of this skill. So we want to time this with the season theme. That includes the angels. If the angels are out and this skill is available, make sure to cast it once on the boss to make sure that the angels can kill the boss faster. With this, we're going to use Haunted Visions. I tested Manual Nova a lot without Sims at all, but my conclusion here was that the Cursed Form is the most efficient rune because we still get one Simulacrum. The problem with the normal Nova build is that we run Simulacrum, Blood and Bone. That gives us 2 Sims, and with the other build, the Siphon build, we are auto-casting 2 Novas from the Sims. Those proc area damage, but your own auto-casts from Siphon Blood don't, which means there's a very high chance, especially with the Blood rune of Death Nova, that the damage done by the Sims, since that's a higher damage number, that's going to have a higher chance of killing enemies from the Sims. If Simulacrum kills the enemy through Frailty, so if the enemy is at 16% health, for example, and you do kill them with the Sims, you don't get a stack for Pandemonium from that kill. So this build is the solution to that problem. That being said, we go with the Unstable Compound rune because it still has high damage. It has a much larger AoE, which is really good for gathering density and just making sure that we're getting a lot of resource back per hit. So this hits more enemies, therefore we get back more resource. So I recommend this rune. Blight is something you might run if you're running kind of squishy, but this has a slow, so I recommend not having that. That being said, I try to avoid having slows in the Enchantress, so we don't have this slow, we don't have this slow, and I don't have the Cheat Death, which is a slow. So we take those out. Moving on, the basic rundown on the skills. Simulacrum Cursed Form is going to be the best option because the combination with Aura of Frailty is going to give you Leech, which is going to give you tons of healing. which enables this build. Normally your healing is done by Siphon Blood. In this case, it will be done by Leech. You're also getting Decrepify for free. Just keep in mind that if you run the Internal Torment passive in this build, you're going to be slowing down enemies with this build that are far from you. You'll only slow down enemies that are close to you, which is fine. If you're fighting them, it's okay if they're slow. But if you want them to follow you and they're over here, then Eternal Torment will slow them down and they won't be able to get to you quite as fast. So you want to be able to aggro enemies and gather density quickly. So I do not recommend running Eternal Torment. With this, we're going to take the Blood is Power. That's going to reset the Army of the Dead. This is our pixel skill. That's what that looks like. This pulls enemies really efficiently. You just want to make sure to aim it at empty space in between a large pack of enemies. So with this build, we want to run as much cooldown as possible. And getting back into the gear here, I take cooldown over the additive damage. We have a lot of additive damage in this build, so it's okay. We're not really losing out on much there. Cooldown on the Zodiac, cooldown. We wouldn't take cooldown here because the area is too important. Cooldown here is important. Ideally, this would be 10% damage, area, and cooldown, though. I think that about covers it. We want to make sure to take poison skills damage on these three. With the other variant, we're not going to have the Blackthorns. I think that pretty much covers it here. I recommend running Final Service and then taking off the Enchantress proc, but you can keep the Enchantress proc if you'd like, and then just run Dark Reaping for better resource management if you're struggling with resource. If you play your cards correctly, you won't be struggling with resource. Because we get auto leech cast, we don't spend essence from a curse, so that helps manage resource. Bone Armor, Dislocation, and Death Valley are going to be what we primarily reset with the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is what the cube looks like here. We're running APDs for more toughness. That's the best toughness item. I don't recommend running Saint Archers in this build because it will interfere with stacking up Iron Rose. Bloodtide Blade is a staple of any Nova build because it's a giant multiplier. So that's the cube. And that pretty much covers it. So we want to reset Bone Armor, keep this buff up because it's consumed very quickly by the Scythe of the Cycle. So for manual Nova, we use Scythe of the Cycle instead of Funerary Pick. This is also a faster multiplier. It applies that multiplier to all enemies all the time, which is much more efficient for killing trash than with the Funerary Pick. So this allows us to get rid of the Funerary Pick. But because we consume stacks so quickly with Pain Enhancer, the Bone Armor drops off really fast, so we want to recast it. This also gives us more Crisbin's procs, which is good for damage. Primarily, though, all the cooldown in the build is here for Army of the Dead to be available more often. The critical times that we want to cast this is on the corpses, the geyser, and the chests. I want to say it's probably better to not cast it during the meteors unless you have a channeling pylon. If you have a channeling pylon during the meteors, feel free to cast this to your heart's content to kind of pull enemies into the meteors more, make sure more of them die. I would recommend casting this on the boss, though, in order to proc Strong Arm Bracers. So that pretty much concludes this variant of the build. We have gameplay examples already online. I have gameplay examples for the Golem variant as well, so you can see both of those. Just real quick, I want to go over the Golem variant. The differences here, you literally run 0 cooldown in the build. So ignore the diamond here. Ideally, this would be poison attack speed, crit chance, and death nova damage, and no socket. Ideally, this is pretty much exactly what this would look like. This would have no cooldown, this would have area, this still has area. This would have no cooldown and it would have death nova damage. We would want to wear the Crisbins here because we don't need the cooldown from the Zodiac. This would ideally be crit chance over intelligence, though. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. All of this is the same. The one difference here is instead of cooldown, you can take 10% damage, area, and attack speed. The multiplicative damage multiplier on the weapon is really nice to have for damage. And Zodiac procs as well. So with this, we're going to wear the Golem skin breeches until you're higher Paragon. If you're higher Paragon, you can give up APD, opt for the Blackthorn's pants, just like the other build, and then just go ahead and cube these. You might opt for that also if you just can't get a good pair of pants. So that pretty much covers the differences on the items. And then with the Enchantress, the only difference is we're going to take elemental skills damage. And then instead of Army of the Dead, we're going to use Bone Golem. And instead of Blood is Power, we're going to use Commander of the Risen Dead. That's going to specifically reduce the cooldown of Command Golem. And without any cooldown in the gear, with a perfect roll on Golem, you're looking at like a 10-second cooldown for Golem. Plus you have Pain Enhancer attacking really fast with Zodiac. So you're going to reset the Golem, so it's pretty much available to cast reliably with 0 cooldown. So if you have less cooldown in your gear, I recommend this variant. It's going to get you better results than the typical build. I hope this shines some light on any questions you guys had about why I'm running this setup or how it works. This should give a lot better results for anything under 5k Paragon or around 5k Paragon or lower than running Rathma. It should, as long as you know how to play around the Angels. If you don't like playing with the Angels, go ahead and play Rathma. The two of them are looking a lot more comparable. They have different win conditions though, so this kind of like puts them a lot closer to each other than anyone, including myself, really expected. But I'm not really here trying to say like this is the better thing for sure. This is definitely the best LOD option, and I want to say this is probably, for most people, this is going to be more fun and accessible to you than the Rathma build, because it's just tankier and it moves faster and it's just a little bit more fun to play. To be honest, the main variant that I've been pushing with Army of the Dead feels a lot like a Corpse Explosion build, but at a much faster pace. So if that sounds appealing to you guys, go ahead and give it a try. I hope this video gives you guys something fun to try out before the season ends. And have fun with it, and we will see you next time.